Conventional wisdom has either Drake May or Matthew Stafford winning the NFL's MVP award. But we just saw another choke job from Stafford last night. 3 interceptions against a very inferior team, meaning that I would think that May has pulled into the lead. And as I watched that, I wondered what would happen if the 49ers went out and made a statement on Saturday night to not only grab the NFC West title, but also to grab the NFC's number 1 seed. Because if that happens on Saturday night, Brock Purdy will have led the 49ers to a 7-0 record and the top seed in the conference after his return. And by the definition of the word, you could argue, and I think you could make a strong argument that Brock Purdy would be the most valuable player in this league. At the same time, you could make a strong argument, especially if you preferred a player who's been available for the entire season, that Christian McCaffrey is the most valuable player in this league. McCaffrey, remember, in 2023 was third in the MVP voting, and it is not out of the question for a running back to win this award. 2000, Marshall Faulk. 2005, Sean Alexander. 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson. 2012, Adrian Peterson. Those are the running backs to win the NFL's MVP award this century. So, yes, as of late, it's become more of a who's the best quarterback on the best team award, but there is precedent for a running back winning the award. And when you look at Christian McCaffrey and what he's done, he just surpassed 2,000 plus scrimmage yards. He's done that 3 times now in the past 10 years. If there's someone who deserves a lifetime achievement MVP award that's outside of the quarterback position, kind of like when Leonardo DiCaprio finally won Best Actor. I think it was the year that he won The Revenant. But I mean, Christian McCaffrey's body of work this year is a lot better than Leo's performance in The Revenant. But I digress. Lifetime Achievement Award could go to Christian McCaffrey. This year has been awesome. Maybe he could even put a finishing touch on it with a 1,000 season, although that is increasingly unlikely. Christian has already surpassed 1,000 rushing yards. He's 110 yards away from 1,000 in the receiving department. That's a tall ask since his season high is 92 receiving yards. That happened against Jacksonville in week 4. That being said, Jacksonville is one of the best defenses the 49ers have faced. Maybe facing a really good Seattle defense makes Purdy go to McCaffrey a little bit more often. And hey, if he rips off a 60 or 70-yard touchdown early in this game, catch and run, there can always be a busted coverage, a broken defense. All of a sudden, McCaffrey will be within striking distance of a 1,000 season. And maybe we really can potentially talk about Christian McCaffrey as at least somebody who receives MVP votes. But, you know, I would like to see this only vote for the quarterback trend end. Or I guess McCaffrey did get votes in 2023. It'd be cool to see the only QB trend end in this MVP discussion. Anyway, let's start with the basics here. The basics are that the NFL MVP award typically goes to the most efficient quarterback on the best team, unless there's bias, and Brock Purdy's involved in 2023 when he didn't get it. The obvious reason there was the recency bias of the Ravens game that happened late in the season. It was extremely unfortunate for Purdy. He was still an MVP finalist, but he wasn't voted as the winner. This is a look at this is from Kevin Cole online. This is PFF offensive grade on the x-axis and EPA per play on the y-axis. I don't like this one quite as much as the CPOE because I feel that PFF grade can be more subjective. I like looking at stuff that's just more numbers oriented because I'm trying to take the eye test out of this. But I'll give you another XY chart in a second. This one is just a little more aesthetically pleasing since it has each team's logo on there. Purdy's been the most efficient quarterback in football. It's Purdy and Maye. You could see the 49ers logo and the Patriots logo right on top of each other. Actually, a fairly sizable gap above Matthew Stafford. If we look at this in a different graph that does the EPA and the CPOE, you will see that the gap is rather large. The PFF grading, which I believe carries some subjective bias since it's people watching tape and trying to chart the plays, puts a much more favorable light on Matthew Stafford's season. Last night, at the very least, the disaster in Atlanta for the Los Angeles Rams should eliminate, in an objective world, should eliminate Matthew Stafford from MVP consideration. I mean, Maye is way out here in terms of CPOE. That's great. The more important metric is the y-axis because that's efficiency. That actually directly accounts for results on the field. So Purdy is higher up there, but Maye is really good. Jordan Love has had a nice season, but Love has been out. Obviously, the reason that Purdy is not being talked about hardly at all in MVP discussions right now is because he has missed 8 games this year. No MVP has ever missed more than 3. Joe Montana missed 3 in 1989. John Elway missed 3 in 1987, and that was a replacement player year because of a player strike in 1987. So missing 8 games and winning the MVP is unheard of up until this point. But you do have to consider the scenario in which the 49ers beat the Seattle Seahawks on Saturday. And if that does happen, just envision what the landscape will be, both from an objective number standpoint and from an atmosphere standpoint, an aura standpoint, because this is a human-voted award. If the 49ers beat the Seahawks on Saturday, Brock Purdy will have guided the 49ers to a 7-0 record since his return. Brock Purdy will have guided the 49ers to the very top offensive spot in his return. They will be the number 1 seed in the NFC. There will be absurd efficiency statistics like this one. This is third down performance. Purdy is far and away the best in the league. There will be such a wide gap in performance between what the 49ers offense will have done over the last 7 weeks with Brock Purdy back and everything else, including the 49ers offense without Purdy and every other offense in the NFL, that I think that there would be a statistical argument to support the case that this is the league's most valuable player. You plug Purdy in, even if it's for less than the full season, but he gets essentially a full season's worth of results, leading the 49ers all the way to the 1 seed, making up ground for when they were injured early in the season. I think by the definition of the word, you could argue that Purdy is the most valuable player. Now, I get it. The voters are human. Counting stats mean a whole heck of a lot to these voters. So they're probably going to be looking at less sophisticated stats. They're probably going to be looking at raw touchdowns, raw passing yardage. That likely does leave Matthew Stafford alive, as unfair as it is. Like, Stafford should not be alive when it comes to the MVP award. The Drake Maye, I believe that Drake Maye should be the favorite right now in an objective, fair world. I get it. Purdy hadn't played in 80 of these games, and it would be asking voters to completely recalibrate their brains to vote for him for MVP if he's missed that sort of time. I'm just saying that there is an argument that he's the most valuable player based on the body of work, especially if he notches a second win over the Seattle Seahawks. But in a standard voting process, considering that only Elway and Montana won with multiple missed games, that was 1987 and 1989, 3 games missed when they won their MVP. So in a standard MVP calculation process, this has to be Drake Maye's lead right now. Well, Matthew Stafford cannot, in a fair world, cannot win the MVP after what we saw against the Carolina Panthers with 3 interceptions, after what we saw against the Atlanta Falcons with 3 interceptions. He's taken so many sacks. He's not elusive at all. Brock Purdy, meanwhile, is the most elusive quarterback in the league. He's the hardest quarterback to sack. Matthew Stafford is a system quarterback. Brock Purdy is a quarterback who elevates the team around him. The data, the tape, all of that. I mean, we've seen it with our own eyes. Has shown us all of this. The Rams have a top 5 defense, a top 5 run game, and Stafford in many ways, especially when the pocket breaks around him, when he loses his left tackle. They were starting DJ Humphries at left tackle. In many ways, he's along for the ride, and he's not creating with his legs. He's not elevating the system what he's able to do. And obviously, the final numbers are damning toward Matthew Stafford. You'd look at team success, which is obviously correlated with this. Stafford's team is in third place in its own division right now. Divisions only have 4 teams in them. So I just don't see a way to justify giving the MVP to a quarterback of a team that finishes third in the bottom half of its own division, while that MVP has been statistically outperformed by numerous other quarterbacks in the league. So, again, in an objective world, cross Stafford off of this list. If you have to give it to a quarterback, give it to Drake Maye. If you have to eliminate Brock Purdy because of his sample size, fair enough. But this guy also exists, Christian McCaffrey, and there is precedent of giving this award to a running back. Now, let's talk about Christian's season here in 2025. It hasn't been his most efficient season. There have been years where he's gained way more yards per carry, and there have been more yards per reception, better yards per route run. It hasn't been his most explosive season. The 49ers just haven't been operating with as much room offensively as 2023, for example. It hadn't been his season with the most rushing touchdowns. He's got 10 right now. He had 15 rushing touchdowns for Carolina back in 2019. It has been his best season in terms of receiving touchdowns. He's got 7 receiving touchdowns this year. He had 7 in 2023. 1 more. It's going to be a career high for Christian McCaffrey. But across the majority of the statistics, it had not been Christian McCaffrey's best season. However, it has been an ultimate volume usage year for Christian McCaffrey at a time when the 49ers have badly, badly needed that. Consider that they're playing with an absolute skeleton crew for a critical stretch early on here in 2025. I go back to that Rams game in week 5, where the 49ers were down Brock Purdy. They were down Jawan Jennings. They're obviously down Brandon Ayuk. They were down George Kittle. They had to rely on Kendrick Bourne as their big X wide receiver threat in that game against LA. And Jake Tonjes has been playing well, but he's not George Kittle. And that was before Jake Tonjes, I think, really, really evolved into the every down weapon that we saw this past weekend against the Chicago Bears. So it was just volume for Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey over and over again on the ground, through the air. The offense wasn't explosive because they didn't have the outside threats creating space, but they needed somebody to consistently move the chains. They needed somebody they could rely on. They needed somebody who could take that beating that you take when you touch the ball so often at the NFL level. And it was McCaffrey answering the bell every single time. At this point, entering the final game of the season, he's got nearly 1,200 rushing yards, and he has 890 receiving yards. As I said, he's 110 yards away from being the first player ever to go 1,000 twice. That is the ultimate stat to illustrate the prodigiousness of Christian McCaffrey's volume production. And for a 49ers team that has had to overcome so much, and they find themselves here at 12-4 with 13-4, the ticket to the NFC's number 1 seed. I mean, it's one of the great resurrection stories that we've seen within a single season. in the NFL, uh, there is a very strong case to be made that the one player who's been a fixture for the team from week 1 all the way to week 18 is the most valuable player in the league. They don't stay afloat without Christian McCaffrey. Now, the argument for Brock Purdy is that they don't take this to number 1 levels without Brock Purdy, and that's true as well. So, it's so hard to have these discussions because, everybody always wants to point at one player, but there are 11 different jobs on the football field, and I would argue even more than that, but 11 different positions. There are so many different unique jobs on the field that all have to work together. And in the same light, like over the course of the 49ers season, there have been so many different needs that have had to be tended to get the team to this spot. You don't get to this spot without Brock Purdy, and he plays at the most important position. So you say that he's extremely valuable, but you also don't get to this spot without Christian McCaffrey because Purdy did miss those 8 games, and McCaffrey also makes Purdy better when Purdy is out there because obviously you want Christian McCaffrey, a future Hall of Famer, on the field. So there's a strong argument to be made for the running back as well. Way too often, I don't think that the MVP voters sit here and break it down in the way that I'm breaking it down right now. I think that, again, it usually is the best quarterback or most efficient quarterback on the best team kind of thing. I wish that there was a way to reward these players in a more nuanced fashion. This is my way of trying to do that by at least talking about it on a video and at least making an intelligent discussion about it. Unfortunately, when it comes down to the voting, it's going to just be a simple voting process, and a lot of this nuance is probably going to be ignored. But at the very least, we can establish that Christian McCaffrey is deserving of a Most Valuable Player award this year, just based on the sheer volume. I mean, he's been the foundational pillar from week 1 to week 18 for this 49ers team. Remember how ridiculous it was that people thought he wasn't going to play in week 1? Well, he's going to play in every single game this season. And Brock Purdy has elevated the 49ers offense to an unreal level as far as ceiling goes. He's doing historic stuff, so he deserves consideration as well. We call it the Drake Maye Matthew Stafford MVP because that's all that the media has talked about. But with a statement win on Saturday night against the Seahawks, the 49ers with Purdy and Christian McCaffrey could at least give voters something to think about and maybe take a few votes here and there with them. I think it would make for a compelling story, and I think that would be in the interest of objectivity. Just like Kyle Shanahan, he wasn't in the Coach of the Year conversation, at least in the betting markets, for most of this season. All of a sudden, I've seen a couple of the list of the odds, and Kyle Shanahan is in first place. He's overtaken even Mike Vrabel on one of them. So, groupthink is a thing. Like, you could have really low odds to win one of these awards, and then one thing clicks, and then everybody starts thinking in a different direction, and all of a sudden you have the top odds, right? So groupthink really is a thing. We've led some of this thought in the past, and I would definitely like to see more of the gray area acknowledged when it comes to some of these awards, because you could say the award doesn't mean anything. Unfortunately, some of these awards are like the Pro Bowl are tied to contract incentives, and I think they ultimately end up meaning a lot in terms of legacy, because people will go back and say, hey, yeah, Steve Young won the MVP, and this year, and this year, he's a multi-MVP winner, and they'll go back and they say, well, Christian McCaffrey became one of the only running backs to win the MVP if somehow that happens. I give you the list of Adrian Peterson, LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Alexander, and Marshall Faulk having won the MVP over the course of this season, or over the course of this century, and those are running backs who got the job done. So it's a running back who won the MVP. We could go back to Mark Mosley, a kicker in 1982, winning the MVP. Did you guys know that? A kicker won the MVP for Washington in the 82 season. It was a strike-shortened season, but somehow, some way, the kicker who actually eliminated the 49ers that year in the NFC Championship game Mark Mosley brought home the hardware. That's one that I still don't understand. It's amazing how much better kickers have gotten too over time. Mosley, I think, made 21 of 22 field goals that year, which is like par for the course now for some of the top 5, top 10 NFL kickers. You don't even bat an eye. It's like automatic that they're gonna go about 90%. You know, some guys over their stretch, like Eddie Pinheiro, had his long field goal streak finally snapped by the 64-yarder in Indianapolis, but he had made, I think, over 20 in a row. Yeah, he had like 20, 24, 25. Back in 82, that kind of performance would have been MVP worthy. Even though it was a strike shortened season, still wild. So let's just get it away from this QB only thinking. They've got the Drake Maye, Matthew Stafford efficiency graph. This supports my early argument that if you absolutely have to vote, if you're a voter watching this and you absolutely have to vote for a QB, then Matthew Stafford is not it. Like, there is no objective measure that puts Matthew Stafford above Drake Maye. There just isn't. This is cumulative production on an EPA scale over the course of the year. So as the year progresses, the number should increase if the quarterback is playing efficient football. Drake Maye has outproduced Matthew Stafford this season, and it isn't relatively close. He's got a fairly wide gap there by the end of all of this. So, it is what it is with these numbers, and we can talk more about it. I'll head into the comments section in a little bit. For now, we can talk about the latest. Yesterday, this was the text title that I used on my show. Stafford threw 3 picks, and the Rams lost their 5th game of the season. And that means that the Rams are now much more likely to end up in the number 6 seed, which is potentially really good news for the 49ers, and I think the rest of the NFC, because I do think that the Rams have the best all-around offense and defense combination in the conference and in the NFL. So this is probably good news for the rest of the NFL, because you want the Rams to face the hardest path possible. If the playoffs started today, and I know that they don't, but if they started today and the Rams would be the 6th seed, and they would have to head to Philadelphia. 49ers would be the 5, and they'd have to head to Carolina. Now, it's unlikely that the 49ers end up in the 5, because if they win and beat Seattle, they'll be the number 1. If the 49ers lose, they will actually, in all likelihood, drop below the Rams to number 6, unless the Rams also lose to Arizona. But if the Rams beat Arizona, if the Rams beat Arizona and the 49ers lose, and both of these teams finish at 12-5, the Rams will actually leapfrog the 49ers, because conference record does not determine the tiebreaker in that situation. It would be common games, and the Rams will have a better record in common games. The NFL tiebreaker order is confusing to some, but common games comes in front of conference record. So there's a lot on the line for the 49ers this week beyond the 1 seed. I mean, the 1 seed is obviously the big prize, but if you can win the game, it's also the 1 seed plus the Rams are the 6. And that helps not only the 49ers, but the rest of the NFC, because it makes the Rams, in all likelihood, go to Philadelphia and play the hard road throughout this postseason. If you lose as the 49ers, you almost certainly drop down to the 6 yourselves, and you have to take the hard road that I'm talking about yourselves through Philadelphia. So there's very big variance here of potential outcomes for the 49ers. You have a good chance to truly skyrocket as the 1 seed with LA buried as the 6, or you have a chance to drop down all the way to the 6. It's basically a 1-6 differential type of game for San Francisco. Now, they won't find out for sure if they're the 6 until the day after if they lose, because the Rams have to play the Arizona Cardinals to finalize that. The Rams obviously will be playing their starters against the Cardinals, because the 5 seed would be worth playing for. if the 49ers lost. Now, if San Francisco wins, the Rams are locked into the 6. I don't think it would make sense for the Rams to play their starters, but Sean McVay said that they're going to play their starters regardless tomorrow because I think he's really unhappy with how the Rams are currently reeling. They are not playing well, and I don't think that Sean McVay likes the mojo. You go back to Puka Nakua's terrible week heading up to that Thursday night game against the Seattle Seahawks. And, Nakua got into hot water because of the online stream that he did. And then he tried to invite the streamers into the team facility. And Sean McVay wasn't happy about that. And then I think Puka Nakua's brother tried to steal a car or stole a car that week. Just a crazy amount of stuff happened in a two-day stretch. And then the Rams went to Seattle, blew a 16-point lead in the last few minutes of the game. That would have been the 1 seed for LA. The special teams melts down for the Rams. They lose the game in overtime. They have to fire their special teams coordinator. The Rams have not won a game since before that nightmare week. They're 0-2 now. We just saw them almost get run out of the building by the Falcons. It was 24-3. I know the Rams came back and tied the game, but they got beaten by a Falcons team that tried to give that game away several times. And now they're sitting here. Stafford, in an objective world, has lost his MVP chance. In an objective, I keep on couching that in an objective world because people don't seem to be capable of being objective about Matthew Stafford. Stafford has lost his MVP chance. The Rams have lost their 1 seed chance. They've lost their NFC West title chance. They're, on their way to potentially being the 6th seed. The 5 seed, they could salvage things if they are the 5, if the 49ers do lose and they beat the Cardinals, because then they would be able to play the Carolina Panthers or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round of the playoffs. So that obviously would be a much easier path for the Rams. But it's a staggering fall for LA in a very, very short period of time. And it's just like, wow. Because the Rams, if you look at this here, team tier chart, there's, it's more than a strong case. I think it's a definitive case to be made that they've been the best offense-defense combination in the NFL this season. I have to get this open from my X page, so give me a couple seconds here, and then we'll get this up on the screen. These are the standings, but as far as offense-defense combination goes, here we go. And I have the 49ers and the Seahawks both highlighted in this. Get this up on the screen for everybody right now. All right, so this is since, I need to get the full season out. But even since week 11, when the Rams have not been as good defensively in quite some time. Even since week 11, they're a top right team. They're in that top tier with the Patriots, and the 49ers and the Jags are fringe top tier teams. You can see since week 11, since Purdy came back, the Seahawks have not been as good offensively, nearly as good offensively. They've been a below average offense. That's why there's some hope for the 49ers on Saturday, even despite the fact they're not playing great defense. They've been a lot better offensively, and if they can hold the Seahawks to 7 fewer points than they held the Chicago Bears. They held Chicago to 31. If you could hold Seattle to 24, I think it opens the door for a 27-point victory for the 49ers. If you could go into upper 20s, you could win this game 27-24. You could probably see which my prediction is leaning. But I've really got to find the team tier chart for the whole year to conclude my thought about the Rams and why I think that it's potentially very beneficial for the entire NFC to have this team come out of the 6th seed. Oh, look, we have a live look at the MVP race. This is funny. There's Matthew Stafford going after Drake Maye. Now, I think if you're going to go with this metaphor, this is from the game yesterday where the Falcons were taking back Matthew Stafford's what should have been second pick six, the defensive back stepped out of bounds. So if Matthew Stafford has pick sixed his way out of the MVP, but the defensive back or Drake Maye in this situation holding the MVP trophy inadvertently steps out of bounds, doesn't that by definition open the door for either this guy or this guy if the 49ers can beat the Seahawks? I'm just saying on that front. It's funny though. So I'm going back to finding my team tier chart for you. I just ran into that as I was scrolling here through X. Moving down a little bit, man, I've tweeted a lot over the course of the past 2 days. And rightfully so, because this has been, that was a historic win for the 49ers. It was one of the most entertaining games in franchise history. And there's been a real buzz around town, online, that's for sure. And I can't find my team tier chart. So what I'm going to do is create a new one for you guys. Real buzz on here. We set a viewership record yesterday. We had the most views ever in a single day. So I think that fans love the 49ers underdog story. I think that they love the fact that it's not just an underdog story. It's a story of resilience. It's been a Hollywood-like script for the 49ers. It's been kind of a resurrection script for San Francisco. And here we are with an opportunity for this team to take the 1 seed with a win over the Seattle Seahawks on Saturday. All right, here we go. We got team tiers for the entire season, the largest sample that we can possibly have over 2025. This is what I mean. There's one team that is clearly ahead of everyone else in terms of offense-defense combination, and it is the Los Angeles Rams. So I think just by the nature of this, you see that they have a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. You want them to have the hardest possible path through the playoffs. That benefits everybody. That benefits all of their competition. Meanwhile, if you want to look at the whole season, I know that I showed you guys the 49ers with the Seahawks since week 11. If you want to look at the whole year, I don't know if this is as useful because this doesn't include all of the Purdy games. And right now they're playing with Purdy. 49ers still have a top 6 offense or top 5 offense, even if you include the Mac Jones games. They have moved their logo over here to the right. Remember the arrows that I showed you a few weeks ago? The defense, though, has continued languishing. They are ranked number 24 in defensive EPA, and it is below the league average in totality. The Seahawks are one of the best defenses in the league. They're up there with the Houston Texans. You can see their logo up here. But the offense, and I've showed you the regression since about week 10 for Sam Darnold, the offense is just hovering around the league average. And that is a problem for Seattle as they enter this game against San Francisco. Yes, they're going to move the ball. Yes, I would assume that they're going to score some points against the 49ers who have struggled defensively, especially against more competent offenses this year. But the Seahawks objectively have not been playing as good or as well on the offensive side of the ball as the Chicago Bears. And if the 49ers, if they could hold Seattle to less than they held the Bears scored 31 offensively. The pick 6 doesn't count for their offensive production. I think there's a clear path to victory. Now, you can't ignore how good this Seattle defense has been. I mean, they've been at the very, very top of the league alongside the Houston Texans, but the 49ers also have the very best quarterback in the entire NFL, and that is Brock Purdy. He's done this. He's absolutely dialed. He's absolutely locked in, and facing the best defense in the league. He's already beaten the Seahawks in week 1. But he's going to have to do it again if the 49ers want the 1 seed. It is going to be must-see TV on Saturday night. I want you guys to go check out the San Francisco Standard. We've got our 49ers grades up on the Standard. This is what the article looks like. The 49ers' most complete offensive showing of 2025 sets up the Week 18 epic showdown. Yesterday was the 6-year anniversary of 49ers Seahawks part or the 49ers Seahawks 1 seed winner take all battle. This is going to be part 2. That one was up. That remember Marshawn Lynch came out of retirement just for 1 game. Same stakes up in Seattle. That was the Dre Greenlaw, Jacob Hollister stop game back in 2019. Final NFL game of the decade. I mean, they saved their best for last. That was what we saw on Sunday night between the Bears and the 49ers was like a hybrid of that game and maybe the Saints game in 2019, 48-46, Garoppolo, George Kittle leading the 49ers over the New Orleans Saints. Speaking of that, this is the article that I wrote for the San Francisco Standard on Sunday night. I was up till 4:30 a.m. Making sure that I wrote the best possible piece for you guys coming out of the game against the Chicago Bears. This was a hell of a quarterback duel between the very last pick in the NFL draft, Brock Purdy, and 2024's very top pick, the number 1 pick in the draft, Caleb Williams. Purdy outperformed Williams, got him just by a smidge in that quarterback duel. I mean, look at these numbers. 0.45 EPA per play for Purdy, 0.4 EPA per play for Caleb Williams. That is very, very good across both quarterbacks. You rarely see both deliver at that type of level. And I think that both are playing at a higher level than Sam Darnold is for the Seattle Seahawks right now. Article is full of some of the video highlights in the game. You can watch those. What a shot. Brock Purdy canning the play at the line of scrimmage. And then Steve Young saw himself in Brock Purdy on that scramble drill touchdown pass to Kyle Juszczyk. Saw the meme from Steve Young. Really, really good stuff. That's all in the piece. Here you have Purdy scoring on the read option, running around Austin Booker, and of course, some of the third down data. You should sign up for the San Francisco Standard. I'm going to go ahead and send this link to Mike, have him toss it into the description so you can go ahead and sign up. It is the very best 49ers coverage that there is out there. We've had a lot of people sign up. We've had a lot of people check out the 49ers YouTube channel that I've got going here. We're almost at 97,000. Our goal was to get there this week, and we're at 96,985. So please go ahead and hit the subscribe button right now and then go over into the description, into the comment section. Check out the link to that article about Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Quick injury check-in. I have to head back out to the practice facility today because it is a short week. There is no Tuesday day off. We're going to be right back into the weekly rhythm of things in just a few hours. The 49ers, because it is their second straight short week, are not going to practice until the evening, until after 5 p.m. to maximize sleep and recovery. So that's why the schedule is going to be a little bit wonky today. Wanted to get a nice video in for you earlier in the day, and then you'll definitely hear from me a little bit later. Maybe we'll even have something around the middle of the day here from San Francisco before I head down. This is a look at the 49ers health situation. I am going to remove Ricky Pearsall from injury shading. I'm going to keep George Kittle there for now, but I do think that George is going to play this week, and we're going to get more hints into that situation as this progresses. Trent Williams obviously hurt. We're going to put Austin Pleasance into that left tackle slot behind him instead of on the right side. So Pleasance likely to be the 49ers left tackle this week, although we're going to get a good firm update on Trent Williams from Kyle Shanahan, and we'll see the 49ers practice probably in the stadium because they're going to need stadium lights if they're practicing after 5 p.m. today. On the defensive side of the ball, we'll get an update on Renardo Green, who's been dealing with a neck issue. Darrell Luter Jr. has done a really good job in his place. 49ers, Upton Stout is in the concussion protocol for San Francisco, so we got to keep an eye on that. And Keon White, one of their defensive ends, had a groin injury against the Chicago Bears. So that's also something to keep an eye out for. That is the 49ers' current roster look. Another update on that is coming a little bit later today. Can Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey steal the Drake Maye, Matthew Stafford MVP? Well, Stafford shouldn't have it, that's for sure. He has an NFL record for pick sixes, 32 pick sixes. He threw his 200th interception last night. He threw 3 picks last night. He has 2 3-interception games. Get out of here with Matthew Stafford MVP talk. That is tired. What's wired is Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy MVP talk. But a big game is coming up that might help add some fuel to that fire. Hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 97,000. I mean, 3 of you just hit it like this second. That's great. 3 more of you hit it. 12 more of you hit it. We're going to be at 97,000. Also, check out the San Francisco Standard. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon. Maybe from downtown San Francisco. Definitely from the team facility a little bit later today.